So we're ready?
Yes.
Okay. Super.
And then
All right. Thanks, Emily.
We are ready to start going, folks.
Okay. So thanks for coming. My name's Sibella Giorello.
I'm Joe Giorello.
Yes. We have two YA series. Mine is a YA fiction mystery series. I write an adult mystery series, and I went back and took my protagonist back to her teenage years to show how she became who she became. And then at the same time, we had our youngest son was not reading, and it was kind of making me panic because he was already second or third grade. But one of the things we noticed was he loved military history, but it was super hard to find any books at his reading level. So Joe just started, big military history buff, just started writing out battles for him. And he devoured them, and then other parents with boys who were allergic to books said, can we borrow those? And it took off, and it's now a 7-book series, and it's been like #1 for children's history on Amazon probably for 3 or 4 years. So it does really well, and his series is really for boys who hate to read. So it's kind of a paradox, but there's a ton of that. In fact, right before I walked in, I just got a note from a school administrator saying, and this is for all of you, we're starting.
Why don't you read it? So they.
All right, I'll
That's
read
kind of
this.
interesting.
It is, and you'll hear, this is about cracking the sales code. You guys know how to write YA, but there's a hunger out there for YA books and also for movies, but that's my 3 o'clock talk if you come to that. So here it is. I hope this email finds you well. Blah, blah. I'm a middle school special ed teacher who focuses on social studies. This year, my school's initiative is to push more reading. Every day before period 1, we have silent reading period for about 15 minutes. Though this is great, many of my students are struggling to read and or find books that they're interested in, specifically the boys. I've begun to start looking for books to develop a small class library, right? Stumbled on your website, blah, blah, blah. My administration is willing to provide funds to help teachers develop a class library. So the schools are hungry for your books too, because as you guys know, it's gotten really hard to get kids to read with the computer, a smartphone, video games. So we're up against a wall that adult writers don't face as much. You still do. You're still competing with streaming, but for YA, it's really, really serious. And the studies that we've looked at, every single grade in every single state in the United States, boys are behind girls in reading. They're just not reading. Many of them aren't inclined to read, but it's getting worse. Video games are way more active. So what we did with Joe's series is we made his books as exciting as video games. Tons of photos, historic photos from battles, lots of breakout things. Here's a website to go to hear Winston Churchill give his speech for Battle of Britain. And then we also list more books. So, might be some of your books, but we provide links, name of the book. The whole thing is get them reading, and then a movie that the whole family can watch that would be about one of the historic battles. But it's, we get letters constantly from parents and grandparents saying, I can't believe it. He asked to read a book. He's been through the whole series. He wants more. All that to say, there's this huge market waiting in YA. But the thing that we had to figure out sales-wise, even though you're writing for the kids, you're selling to the parents. And your blurb has to kind of do that on Amazon, because it's not the kids on Amazon. You might have a cute ad on TikTok or something where you get the boys interested and they go to their parents and say, hey, I might want to read this. When the parent goes to the Amazon page, that's for them, right? So the first thing that we say on our
Website.
the description page, does your son hate to read? Does he play video games for hours but refuses to pick up a book? We're telling them we know where you're at. Our son was like this too, and then Joe mentions that in his biography. My son was like this, and I had to get him reading. And there are some boys who don't want to read My Friend Flicka, right? They want stuff blown up, they want people to die, they want the king assassinated, they want this stuff to happen. And that it's true makes it, and then the parents love it because their kids get this history education that they often can't get anywhere else. So all that to say, that's where we come from. And then my YA fiction series, I started writing that to fill a different niche. We took in a classmate of that same son's whose family was going to put her in foster care. And she came to live with us for a while, and she was reading stuff that I just felt like the worldview made her worse. So I thought, let's write a YA about overcoming a bad family situation. And so I took my adult protagonist back 13 years because she's got all these family issues, and went through it. Again, filling a niche. And when parents, I can still sell that to parents, but the kids love it. So that would be our main takeaway from this, is to make sure your description is for the parents. And to fill, whatever genre you're writing in for YA, the split-offs, there's a hunger for those kids. We've all been those kids who just searched and searched and searched for that book that was about them. So that's the second part, is find your kid tribe and what it is you can provide for them, right? So my fiction YA was for girls really struggling with family stuff, right? And the parents love that because a lot of them are having those family issues. And then Joe's is really for boys who hate to read. And he's not a writer, so this is a funny thing.
It's very funny.
But he started doing this, and then the publisher I had at the time said, you should really turn those into books, and we have. But all that to say, if you're a great writer, you're already ahead of where we were when we started this.
Well, I wasn't even supposed to be doing any of this, okay? Friend of ours, a really good friend of Green Berets, was supposed to teach a class. He backed out, and after this class was set up, my wife goes, "You're going to do it." And I go, "What?" She goes, "You're going to do it now," because our friend who backed out, so it left me. And that's kind of the way it started also, kind of kicked it
from those
from
notes
the reading,
that he had been writing. Then this is another option for finding your niche or whatever. That was through a homeschool co-op in the Seattle area.
Right.
There were 250 families there, and with young kids and kids who need to read or struggling to read, and it's even more so now with the lockdown. So these co-ops are hungry for people to come in and teach.
And they're growing and growing.
They're growing and growing. So it spread to where Joe was doing 2 co-ops. He had 100 boys, about 100 boys a week with a long waiting list. And the families pay you each month. So in addition, he would be teaching a class, let's say, on World War II. So he's writing the notes for them each week, which was going to be the chapter. So it was he was almost being paid to write, like an advance that we don't have to pay back. But I really encourage you to look at homeschool co-ops or teaching co-ops in your area, and whether you're offering a how-to writing class for young kids, but it gets you into that audience and the parents, and it really started fueling it. So we didn't know how to sell until we realized all these boys signing up and their moms saying, "I can't get them to read." So we thought it was our problem. It was huge. But you'll find out getting sort of like on the front lines of the reading battle with YA. So I just suggest that.
So are either of you certified teachers, or is this just something you picked up?
So in a homeschool co-op, the way it works is you have these families and they're homeschooling, but one day a week they come to a co-op to do classes like theater, art, foreign language, maybe something the parent doesn't feel strong enough to teach, and it's the whole socialization that goes on too. So you teach a specialized class at the co-op. So it could be cooking for kids, it could be writing. They need a ton of teachers to teach writing. These kids, a lot of parents feel very intimidated trying to teach their kids, especially for creative writing. You know, they're not, everything your kid writes is great, right? But so you really need like an outside source to say where the problems might be, grammar, syntax, all that stuff. So there's tons of these co-ops. I mean, in the Seattle area alone, there was one every single day of the week. In fact, sometimes two, and there are a lot of kids there, and it's growing. With the lockdown, a lot of parents started teaching from home, and they appreciate the help. Boy, it was lucrative. I mean, so he had the 100 kids. Each family paid $25 a month. So it a nice income and low enough for the family that they're not shelling out for like private tuition, right? But it's a good way to sustain yourself while you're writing a YA, to be in there teaching kids, maybe, or maybe you write fairy tales, as Emily does, and you could do a class on like, let's just write fairy tales and help the kids with that, and at the same time you're working on yours. There's all these ways to support yourself as a YA writer. So
Well, she said everything, so I'm done. I'll see you guys later. Yeah, I think on my end, actually, what I found out, not as she's clearly stated, not being a writer in a sense, I think it's, first of all, it's got to be something that you really love, okay? Something that you really, really have an interest in, and something that you know a lot about, obviously. If I'm doing nonfiction, I just can't start making up, oh, in 1941, something happened, what was it? So you really got to know your subject, and what you really, again, for me it was love. Since I was a young kid, military. I'd go into the libraries in school, and when we had break, and I'd run up to grab history books and biographies, and just was fascinated by it. And one of the things that caught me, that started this, was World War II. I was always amazed that how we started out as ranked so low in the United States for such a major country. I think we're like 17th or something in the world for an army, standing army, and here we are, this amazing country. So, and here we are attacked, 1941, Japan. Hitler's already attacked at 39, so the world's total conflict. We have Italy, everything's in shambles and craziness. And I was just amazed at how fast we turned this country around, and when people want to get together and they started to do these things. And so it just, again, it just made me go, wow, I want to know more about this, and how do we do this? So that's one part of it. I think you have to love what you're doing, get a lot of knowledge of what you want to say, make sure you're right on it. Another thing that helped me a lot to get going with the books, to hit the audience as mine, being young. When we started this, I started writing way over the top. So this is the key, I think. I was getting super, the 1st Regiment, the 16th Division, and she's going, these are kids, what are you writing? They don't know what you're talking about. And I go, and we'd all, oh, well, no, I think I need to say, she goes, no. And obviously she was right, I could have been a history book with thousands and thousands of others, instead of getting in there so these kids could understand and get the excitement. So you got to know your audience, okay? Perfect example I always give was when I started teaching, which was great, was the fact that it brought me down to their level, because I'd start a class, does anybody have any questions? And one of the kids raises his hands and he goes, yeah, Mr. G, they used to call him Mr. G. What's a bayonet? And I go, boom, wow, that's right. I'm thinking like they all know this stuff. They don't. A lot of kids don't, you know. And so I said, okay, that clicked right there. Okay, they don't know what a vein is. They might not know who the good guys or the bad guys are. Okay, so you got to think to your audience. You know, try to get that whole feel of what's happening. I think another thing I was trying to think about is like, if you're doing nonfiction, it's important to learn, and I fell into this trap myself. As time goes on, more information is being opened up through internet and everything that's going on. And I even had, I'll be honest with you, one of my books in World War II in Poland, when we were doing one of the battles in Poland, that I was told and I was read that Polish cavalry was attacking German tanks. And as years and years, that was always the thing. And I was, oh, that's it, I know it. And I've read it in history magazines. I've read it in books. And then finally, after about a few years ago, they came out with, it was a propaganda move by Germany, where they actually took Polish cavalry who were shot and killed, and like placed the horses and the men on the floor, like approaching that they actually attacked. And people got on me for that. You know, some people, you know, from Poland were saying that didn't happen and stuff. So I think a thing is not only knowing knowing what you want to do. History changes. If you're going to do nonfiction, you got to kind of stay on top of it. So again, it happens.
And I think we just open it up to questions, because we want to know more like what you write or what your challenges are, and if we can help in any way. Yeah, let's start here.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so a question I have is, if you're trying to get boys to read, what is a good word count to keep them engaged before it's too long and they don't want to attempt it?
That's a great question. We have found, and again, through the teaching, we did a lot of trial balloon stuff. So Joe would write pretty intense stuff, and it would be that the moms would say, well, I kind of had to like sit and read it with him, and that wasn't what we wanted. We wanted the boy to own the book. And it's one of the reasons, one of the things, this is something else about boys, all these, you can look up these studies online, the National Education does them, everybody, but a couple things with boys, they want a book that's just for them. So they want to know it's for boys. And we can argue about whether that's good or bad or whatever, it just is. And so his books are titled Great Battles for Boys. And we take flack every day for how come it's not for kids, and we're like, because boys are lagging behind girls for reading. There's plenty of books for girls and they're welcome to read it, but the boys love seeing like the dangerous book for boys, right? They want to go, this is for me. So that's key. So we found, word count wise, I would say about 1,500 to 2,000 words per chapter. Is by someone nodding back there, yeah. And ours is really broken up. We should have brought books.
Yes.
Like, anyway, pretty large typeface, not large print.
And how many chapters?
We probably have 20.
20, yeah.
Yeah, and we divided up. So his book on World War I had to begin to even explain the mess. How did World War I even break out? So he started it, imagine you're walking down the street with your friends, and there's a group of boys coming towards you, and one of them swings and knocks out your friends. Well, you're all gonna jump in the fight because that's your buddy. So it was trying to explain allies and how, getting down on that level.
Right,
And
right.
then we break up the chapters, so because ours is history, we do battles, they're exciting. Lots of people die, gruesome stories also, and then little biographies of heroes, like ordinary, warriors who did something great in that battle. So they get a little biography too. So I would love it if they have the attention span to just read through a chapter. They don't, and especially the dyslexic boys. Huge market for dyslexic boy readers, like this guy saying, the special ed teacher. so many boys struggling with reading right now, whether it's dyslexia, some autism spectrum stuff or whatever. So we make sure to include a lot of public domain historic photos from the battle, or a picture of Stalin, you know, his big mustache.
So do you tend to, one more thing, do you tend to put your images like in the middle of the,
We do.
so that,
We
you know,
break it
there's
up.
just this much reading above and then
Yes.
just this much reading below?
Yes,
Okay.
they any big block of text, the boys' eyes kind of glaze
Glaze
over.
over.
But the other thing we've learned from the moms of dyslexic boys, the audio. So we have audiobooks with our oldest son's actually the narrator. And it turns out with the dyslexic boys, the way that they're teaching them now, they play the audio of the book and have them read along.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is bringing up their comprehension and everything. So that's another thing, if you are doing something, especially for boys, you know, to sell it together with the audio. And we went on our website, thanks to Joe Solari, and got it set up. We call it the Eager Reader System. So parents can buy the paperback. That's the other thing. Almost all our sales are paperback, 95% paperback. But you could buy paperback, ebook, and audio separately, and you're about $30 some odd all. So on our website, we offer it for $22, and we have paperback stored through Printify. Printify. We ordered them from Amazon, author copies. You can order, I think you can order 1,000, $9.99 at a time, and they're $3? So we had those shipped to Printify.
Mm-hmm.
We do have to pay a storage fee. It's $25 a month, but they will then ship out the paperback from there. So especially
It's kind of diversified.
It
So
is,
you're not
in
trying to
case-
lock yourself into one.
Yeah.
Somebody goes out of business or something is shut down. You have options. You're not just locked in.
Right, and then what we do, then the ebook and the audio is just coming through BookFunnel. So we don't have any part in this. We're not packing up books and sending them out and everything. So it's something to consider. I think tomorrow Joe Solari is doing a panel on this with some other authors who are starting to sell paperbacks and ebooks through their own website. So another option.
You're not having any quality issues with Amazon because since they shut down CreateSpace, their quality has really diminished.
Really, we have not
Uh,
Yeah, we've
seen that. We've gotten a little bit on some of the photos because they're historic. The pixels aren't great or anything. So sometimes it's a little bit grainy, foggy.
No, I mean actually physically damaged copies. Lots of
Have
them.
not had that at all.
No.
Anyone else?
No.
Damaged copies?
Some margin issues from printing, but that's,
No, it's a matter of the way they're packing it now. They're not putting all the packing in there, so the books get jostled around.
Right.
And sometimes you get one
Right.
shipment in 5 different boxes
Wow.
and
Right.
books.
I have had some packaging issues.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I've had.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine
It is sloppy.
is an independent publisher, and
Yeah.
he no longer uses Amazon for his books.
Interesting. Well, since they're not, when they're shipped in that large quantity to Printify, it's packed.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah,
we
yeah.
got the book, it was a box and there was no room for anything else to fit in there. It's like 100 books per box, and that goes to Printify, and then they just hold them, and they do beautiful shipping, Printify.
Then the other question I have about ebooks, you sell your ebooks through BookFunnel?
No, well, we don't sell them, we have free downloads.
Oh,
Through
buy a print book,
BookFunnel.
get a free ebook like Amazon used to have.
Right, and then our
I like that.
audio, we have rights to sell, even though we're with an audiobook thing, we have rights to sell our digital audio anywhere.
Separately, yeah.
So that's what we do.
How do you sell that? You just email?
We just put the audio copy, I just uploaded it, so BookFunnel now has audiobook that you can upload.
Oh, okay.
And so we put that up there with an excerpt so people can hear it, and they just, as soon as they buy, and we had to have a web designer do this. Believe me, total tech tards up here. We have no idea how to do any of this. But the web designer set it all up so that when people purchase that Eager Reader system, they get a email from BookFunnel saying, here's your link to the audio and so on. So
And we're trying to also do like a bundling thing too. I don't know if you have multiple books.
that's what I'm saying.
Which is,
Yeah.
That's why she said tech tart.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, just trial and error, we figured it out.
I was gonna ask you about reaching out to the homeschool
Yeah.
audience, and
Yeah.
not just locally, but like beyond. What
Yeah.
kind of stuff do you guys do to reach them?
That's a great question.
I think they kind of get in touch with us more than
Yeah,
anything else.
we've had people ask to do like a YouTube channel, doing it, but again, tech tarts, we're like, I don't know, we'd have to have somebody lead us through that, but it's a great question because let's say, I'm just gonna use this as an example. You come up with a way to teach kids a writing method or fairy tales, and there's no reason you couldn't do Zoom and do that nationally and find, those homeschool organizations are very organized and tons of distance learning now. So even if they aren't homeschooled, they might be in public school and not getting what they need, and you can offer that to them and a subscription rate per class or whatever.
But what
And
about
then-
marketing, specifically marketing your books? Do you target them on Facebook, or do you do any of that kind of stuff?
Good question.
Well, I don't think we specifically target homeschool.
We do a little bit
Not
targeting.
specific,
Yeah, it's not specific so
Yeah.
much because we're just trying to reach boys, and a lot of them are struggling in public school because they need so much like this guy's saying, he's finding that those boys need a ton of attention. But yeah, if you go on Facebook, there's a lot of homeschool groups to market to.
Yeah, because they actually asked us to do Zoom when I said I was not going to do, when everything shut down. And I'm the kind of guy, when I'm teaching, I'm walking, like with the boys, and I can't stay still. So, and I couldn't sit there in front of a thing like this, and teach. So, but I think it's an amazing opportunity. And I think we get a lot of feedback from co-ops because they've read the books, and somebody has heard that, or from word of mouth too. But the books themselves have created people calling us from homeschools, and like for example, this in libraries.
See, that school administrator just said, I need to go find books for kids who are struggling to read or
How about the
topics.
Georgia, the lady from Georgia?
Oh yeah, and then there was a school librarian that contacted us. She said she actually met a marketing person who knew of our books and started telling her, and she goes, oh yeah, I have their email, and so she sent us this email, and she said that when she got those books, the boys were literally throwing each other aside to get to the books, and she said, I'm so happy, I cannot get boys to read. It's a real thing, and we now have a copycat, which I guess is the sign of success. Somebody has come along and
So
rather
the exact,
dastardly
yeah,
thing, he took our format, our font.
in bio, basically.
He stole Joe's bio.
Lucky him.
That's dangerous.
That's plagiarism.
Well, right, except he calls it Greatest Battles for Boys, and then he did the War on Terror, and it's fine, but it was pretty infuriating, to say the least, but we were kind of talked off the ledge of going after him because it's just really not worth your time. You're gonna get, once,
Stealing bio though.
stealing the bio really bothers me.
Yeah.
So we're now gonna try to trademark, and that way we have a little more leverage for going to Amazon and saying, look, this is a ripoff. And
And we did kind of look at, I don't know if you any trouble with copywriting, but that's like it's really out there. That's a scary scenario. If you try to go after somebody on the copyright with books and such,
yeah,
it's probably a losing cause, I would
Yeah.
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any,
So,
yes.
I have one thing that I want to add to what you said about writing the blurb for the parents. Also write your Amazon ad copy for the parents,
Yes.
For the, for the
Yes.
kids you love, here's a great adventure, whatever.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, one sec. Another thing that's interesting if selling books is also hitting uncles, grandparents.
Grandparents.
I mean,
Grandparents.
they're looking, what do I get? somebody and to help at the same time. So you want to help them to read, open the book, and then they have gifts, and it helps them to, and
One
it'll
of-
bring up your sales too.
Yeah, one of our most successful keywords at Christmas was best Christmas gift for boys.
Oh, nice.
And that popped up a lot, and grandparents love giving books, because they're, you know, very concerned about these boys not reading, with, rightfully, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, I'm going to the next meeting to ask a question. My son was a slow reader, and I was buying him books for Christmas, and I found the series where the dog was the detective, and I thought, oh, this was great. Oh, that was a mistake. Oh, that's not aimed at kids.
Only if the dog bit someone, then you'd be like,
This was like, it made me blush, and I'm 52, so
Wow.
that was a mistake. So
Wow.
the other thing I wanted to say about boys is that what did finally work out after the dog fiasco was sports stories.
Yeah,
Basketball
Big.
history,
Yeah.
big,
Guinness Book of World Records,
yeah,
sport history, that really worked.
really
Turning the
works.
floor over to the middle-aged writer now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Not
biographies.
He's very, very young, very young.
Did you,
You were talking about targeting grandparents and aunts and uncles and teachers and stuff. Do you have any methods of getting your books in front of those people so that they can buy?
that's,
I know, like, going to school for school visits is a good way to target teachers, but I have trouble, like, other than just Amazon ads, like, how do you get the grandparents and parents?
I found doing the, and I do the marketing stuff, he's the battle knowledge, I found that if on Facebook, a lot of grandparents are on Facebook because it's the only way they can keep up with those kids and stuff. So targeting them in ads is really good. And then, as she was saying, make sure your copy. So ours still says, "Does your son hate to read?" And sometimes I say, "Does your grandson hate to read?" Right. And then the next line I have is "change his mind." Right. So you want a question and then a declarative sentence right after that. And you're not saying this book will change it. You're saying, look, you know, or start his reading adventure, or start his adventure in learning. You know, it needs to be uplifting, hopeful, declarative statement. And I think the question is really important too. Having trouble finding books for your kids, you know, something like that. Do you have a struggling reader? That kind of thing. And it's, you know, this is for fiction as well as nonfiction. I hope that's clear, because everybody needs to read.
I have another idea to throw out. Speaking of sports books, I've been approached by somebody that does a subscription box for kids that play baseball and softball.
Great idea.
And also I reach out every year around August to the previous year's gift list. Just Google gift lists, Christmas gift lists, and I just hit them all up and say, this is a great idea for your gift list.
That's great.
Consider it, and you never know, because if you can get on one of those lists,
Yeah.
you know, it really helps.
Yeah, it really, and we've toyed with that. We have 7, coming up on 8 books, but we've thought, well, once we get to 12, that we might do a book of the month. Because it's so fun to get something in the mail and so forth, so.
yeah, we're
Lots of
fortunate
options.
too that, like for the battle books anyway, you can follow up to help sales with certain holidays. Like I'm doing right now, finishing American Revolution, and we're gonna try to set that for the 4th of July coming up.
Right.
So, you know, try to tag in
Yeah,
with dates and holidays and such.
good, she's been waiting. Lindsay.
So I just wanted to speak a little bit to the homeschool thing.
Yeah.
I teach at a homeschool co-op currently, and I teach creative writing and
Great.
English. And most of a lot of larger cities or states will have a homeschool organization that will list out the co-ops and stuff. And I live in Kansas City. Our local homeschool co-op has a yearly, in-person event, conference kind of thing. They have a show floor, so that's another way to get in contact
Yes.
and connect.
Yes, yes, so true. So you go to your state, like let's say Kansas homeschool groups, and there's often a one organization that's keeping them all there, and then you'll have contact information for the homeschool. You can, you know, it's almost like a pitch. hey, I've got this book series, or maybe if you don't want to teach, you could come in as a guest speaker and get the kids excited about your books. But it's a really wonderful way to reach this audience, because Scholastic has a stranglehold on the public schools, and it's very hard to get through that channel. So this is another way.
Can I just say, as a classroom teacher, and I understand your comment right there about Scholastic, the best thing that you can do to get your book seen, and I teach middle school, by those groups of kids that really, they've hit the wall, and once they get to middle school, if they're already struggling readers, it's really hard to bring them back in.
So true.
Go to your local district's website, find the reading teachers, find the librarians, and directly contact them.
Great
Because
idea.
the best thing that you can do to get your reading seen by these people is to reach out to the people who can get it directly to the kids. And not a lot of schools, and I work in a public district, do authors coming into the buildings anymore because of COVID, and even before COVID for other things. But the best thing you can do is to make those direct connections with the people who are teaching and putting books in front of your children. And as a teacher, when authors reach out to me, it's like, it's the most amazing thing in the world to build that connection. Go online, find your local district, and email those people directly. Because a lot of teachers really do have a say in what gets ordered. A lot of librarians do have that push to say, I want to get these books into the library, into the classroom. Or they have budgets themselves to buy that stuff for their own place. So if I am, if I get a book, if I get short stories, if I get an anthology from an author, and my kids really love it, I have $1,000 I can spend, and not every teacher is that lucky, unfortunately. I have the freedom to buy those and put them into my classroom and put them in front of my children, who then go home to their parents and say, guess what I read, and I really want my own copy of it. And so it's a really free and easy way to get your stuff in front of middle schoolers, but also make profit when you get the teachers and the librarians on your side.
True.
Yeah.
Very good points. Thank you.
Do you guys advocate to getting your books into Library of Congress so that it can be hosted in public libraries and everywhere? I know that there's rules within the public library system. You can't get a book that's not registered with the Library of Congress. Have you guys ever run into that?
We
No?
haven't had that. Up until the lockdown, we had great library sales, and we have registered copyright and things like that. But the libraries were a really good source. Right now, I hope other people's mileage has varied. Our library sales have plummeted in the last year or so, which is understandable.
Right.
The question about age grouping, because my books, the youngest I recommend is 10, which puts them in middle grade, but it leads them up to slightly higher. And I'm wondering if I should be trying some of these things, or if my third grade is really too young. I tell their parents, if they're not sure, if they've read Harry Potter, they can read my books. And they're not for struggling readers, they're just regular adventures with a boy hero.
I'm not sure. You're saying that you think they're too young?
No, I think mine might be a little bit beyond the struggling reader.
By 10.
Yeah. 10 is the youngest that I advocate, that they read it.
Yeah, well, for boys at least, we found a sweet spot in 8 to 9.
Yeah, so that's what I was asking, because it sounded like your books are for younger boys than mine.
Yeah, we do get some older readers.
do grow up.
Yeah, but the nice thing too, when you're targeting for YA, we've talked about this, it's a constantly replenishing pool. People age out and people age in. Whereas with adults, you can kind of hit your market and kind of saturate it. So it's another nice thing about writing YA is,
Sorry, my last question. You said that you've got like series out. Do you tend to carry characters through those series, or do you tend to have like a topic that you follow?
Well,
not mine are big.
Obviously yours, but
Right.
I'm thinking more like non-historical, like sports story. Would I target baseball, or would I target Johnny playing baseball?
That's a great question. You know, I think it's finding, it's a lot of trial and error. Like when we started this, we had very few sales. We were mostly concentrating on the classes, and it really wasn't until we got some really good covers done, and we started saying, oh yeah, this could be a whole series. So a lot of this is going to be trial and error,
Okay.
and different. Like I think it'd be really cool to have a baseball series. It's like the greats of baseball, and you could do Babe Ruth, you could do somebody today, you could do Pete Rose. I mean, all those things, or you could do a sports series. But you know, just as Joe was saying, you know, something that you would love to write about, because if you want to do the series, you're going to spend a lot of time with it. And then just carefully do your research and get, you know, good editor and fact checker. If you're going to do nonfiction, get a fact checker.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Amazon sales page description, how much of it are you focusing on directly, you know, language that sells to the parents versus talking a little bit about the content and the actual story?
Good question. We start with the parents. So does your son hate to read? Does it? But then we segue into what the book's about. On this journey into military history, kids learn about the tank battle at Kursk and how exciting it is, and the chapters are short and punchy, and then at the end, and this is Brian Cohen, who's here, helped us with a lot of this, because we had, again, trial and error. We kind of were like nosing around that, but then he just bang zeroed in on it. And then at the end, he had put the tagline, if your son likes action adventure stories with like blood and guts heroism, then this book is for him. You know, so you're doing, you know, that you kind of sandwich it. It's parent, here's what your kid's gonna love. Parent, close.
And about how long is it roughly?
Pretty short, I'd say. Well, you know, you only get that much showing up on the page, so I'd say total it's about like this, and I do bullet points in it. So, yeah.
Do you have a mailing list?
You know, we don't.
No.
Well, here's our problem.
Oh, we're out of here.
Yeah. we did it for a while, and the only thing I use it for is launches, because here's the thing, we aren't hugely productive. It takes us about a year to get the books out, because I'm writing my stuff and then editing, and he's got other stuff going on too. So what we found was a lot of times those people on our mailing list, their kids had aged out. So rather than getting ding, delete, spam. So I just use it for launches, but I mostly use, you know, the follow button on Amazon. I do our Facebook page. We always say when there's a new book out, and we start early. We start saying, oh, so for now, I haven't done this yet. It's to do. American Revolution be out in July. So all spring I'm going to be posting maybe some excerpts and stuff. But I have found the mailing list is, again, everyone's mileage varies, but for us, for YA, the mailing list isn't the same as with adults, because the kids are now teenagers or they're adults. And I just found we were paying all this money and putting all this effort in, and I didn't see the return on investment for it.
You know, a sidebar is kind of interesting too, with YA stuff, especially for me, for boys. It can bring the family together too. Like a dad can sit with his son or daughter, whatever, and then they could read the books together, and it's something that actually would bring the family together. They're doing something as a family again.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's, instead of them walking away doing a video game where some guy's in the other room watching the TV, they're sitting, they're reading, and open their mind to, again, the whole idea is to get boys to read, just to open their mind, just to say, okay, there's a lot out there. Instead of just this game here, there's so much to learn. It's amazing what's out there which I haven't learned yet, so.
And I think if anybody who does historical YA, that's a great selling point for grandparents too, because what we found is, you know, families who had somebody who served in the Korean War, World War II, it has been really great for the family because the boys start asking questions. I mean, the grandparents love that, right? So that's another thing to consider, marketing wise. You know, bonding time. Does your grandson not understand what happened? You know, whenever. So lots of ways to market it. So I think we're closing out. Close. So all I'd say again, you're writing for the kids. You're marketing to the people with the wallet. So, remember that.
Know your audience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody? Any other questions? Yeah.
Just one. How do you go about the objections when you say you're marketing this book's for boys, and we say, well, other than the obvious, the girls and everyone else can read it, do you have any other suggestions on saying, well, it's not just for boys, even though that's where you're marketing it towards?
It's a great question. We have been over this, and again, a lot of trial and error. I used to just go, screw you, you know, like I was like, that's not a good marketing thing. So we sat down, and what we decided was he would write up kind of a mission statement about why it's for boys. So he wrote this out, and it begins. A lot of people ask me, why is it for boys? And then he explained it, and we pinned it to the Great Battles for Boys Facebook page, pinned it up there at the top. We have it on the Amazon page as well on the side. So, and then there's the whole thing. There's no such thing as bad marketing. So even when people get upset, which they do quite a bit, and they leave these 1-star reviews, all it says is sexist. And I'm like, okay, didn't buy it, didn't read it, but
didn't read it.
yeah, okay, but anyway, you just have to let it go. But you know, you can almost use it to your advantage, because you know.
It starts a conversation, or it starts people.
Yes.
So anything that gets out there and you're talking about it, that's
it's good. It's good for your series. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.